all set. Make sure you guys get closer to the microphone because you sound a little off mic. So.
Okay, you hear us now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
All right, AJ, you want to start? Go ahead.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. It's Carol Montgomery, and welcome to our monthly radio show. I'm here with, of course, Dr. Duncan McCullum, chiropractor, health expert, and now award-winning author. Yay. And we have a very special show today, don't we, Dr. McCullum? So I'm going to have you take over from here.
Absolutely. Well, we're here at the World Symposium on Cellular Healing. And we're in Boca Raton, and we're very excited. There's a group of very dedicated healthcare people here who are just learning the top-end, most relevant stuff on how to help you get well. And I would like to bring up an amazing fellow who's putting this together. And I gotta just say this: if B.B. King's the king of the blues, and then we've got Dr. Daniel Pompa here, who's the king of cellular detox. So, Dr. Pompa, tell us about why we're here and what we're doing to change the world.
Well, we have some unique solutions, I think we all agree, and we hopefully have a growing group of doctors who are here to be part of a group that literally, has answers the world needs, no doubt. You pointed that out. What are we doing here? I mean, we're hopefully all learning that you have to get upstream to the cause of why people are sick. And from stage this morning, I mean, that's one of the criticisms I have, even with alternative care, is that the people are going to some amazing practitioners, even in our alternative world, and yet I find that they haven't even looked at how many amalgams they have in their mouth, or even ask questions about the homes they live in, or even ask questions about their wisdom teeth that were removed, which can basically leave behind something called a cavitation, hidden infections of why people are sick. So we're doing something very unique. We're going after cause, which really shouldn't be unique in my mind. But we're also learning a multi-therapeutic approach.
Yeah.
Putting strategies together to address the upstream causes. But again, this is why people don't feel well, and they're not getting well today.
Yeah.
So you got to go upstream.
So we're really, one of the things that you've taught us is the phrase, fix a cell to get well. Mm-hmm. And until we actually get to the root cause of what's in the cell causing the cell basically to break down and create this problem with our genes, we're not going to be able to really address the cause. So some of the breakthroughs that you've seen are being able to get into the cell and pull the toxins out of the cell.
Yeah, I mean, you heard this morning from stage, I brought 4 people up on stage that were clients of mine, and no different than clients of yours, that you hear people said, look, I was given this diagnosis of Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune thyroid, and of course they begged her to go on medicine. She didn't. She took a different approach. She went upstream to the cause, and you heard her story. Another woman came up and told a story about her son who was diagnosed on the autism spectrum. And now you heard her say that he is absolutely, you wouldn't even know to speak to him. And I hugged and cried with that little boy, so I can tell you wouldn't know. And then another gentleman who was so sick he couldn't function, work, or even exercise, and you heard his outcome. And what was in common? What was in common is they both got the toxins not just out of their body, but out of their brain. So yeah, you're right. You have to get to the cell to get well. More specifically, you have to detox the cells to get well. And the point that I think all of those patients made very, very clear, which was awesome, was the fact that it was the brain phase of the detox that really started to change their world and change their life. And you see that in your practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what is unique about what you're teaching us is basically we can't just go in and do a quick cleanse. We have to actually prepare the body. We got to allow the body to be able to get the toxins out so there's some place for them to go, rather than just stir them up and allow them to do more damage in the body.
Well, I mean, I took a photo the other day. I was in Whole Foods, and I've watched if you go to the supplement area, I've watched the detox area grow from like a couple products on a shelf to a shelf, to 2 to 3, and I took the picture. It was literally the whole thing from like ceiling to floor. It was all detoxes, 10-day cleanse, this cleanse, that cleanse. So right now I think it's in vogue. People are understanding that toxins is why they don't feel well, why they can't lose weight. However, it's every one of those cleanses, really we're not getting to the cell. I jokingly call them poopers, at least mostly.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they make you poop, but which could be good, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so it's not that that's bad. But look, I didn't get my life back, and those people that you heard on stage, they didn't get their lives back by taking poopers or 10-day cleanses. It just doesn't happen that way, right? So, you do something very unique in your practice. I mean, you're on this radio show bringing in a very unique message that obviously we need the world to know about.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for stopping by. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely,
We are so privileged to have you
Yeah.
here putting this together for all these doctors here so that we can actually learn how to change the health of the world, which is really our goal.
Yeah.
And I know that's your goal, to just get people to wake up and find out, maybe you don't want to trust what you're being told, but learn how to take care of yourself. And our goal is to help these people learn how to take care of themselves for a lifetime.
No doubt. We need more of you.
Yeah.
We need more Tammys. We need more. I could go down a long list
Yeah.
of people, right, of the doctors that are here.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's why we're doing this. And I have to believe God gave me this message. I went from pain to purpose. But if it were just me, what's that going to change? We need a joining group of us, which we have growing.
Yeah.
Right? And this morning you heard me talk about the 300 mighty men and women of God, right?
Yeah.
The mighty men and women of God who really changed the nation, changed the world. And that's what we need. That's why we're here. Just to bring it full circle, yes, why we're here? Yeah, that is why we're here.
Yeah.
Because we have a growing group of us that really are doing something so unique. And people are suffering.
Yeah.
And they're definitely not, there's a time and a place for medication, but, they're not going to get the answer for chronic disease there. And the alternative world, they're taking more pills, but really, are they really getting well, lasting? And the answer is no.
Well,
it's because they're not getting the content.
Yeah, and like you're saying, look at the growth of all the supplements people are selling and all this stuff, but is our health really changing?
It's not.
So we haven't got to the answer.
Yeah. So I mean, we can look at both sides and see wrong.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I mean, it sounds trite, but if you get to the cause and remove it, that is the answer. The problem is people think they're getting to the cause.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, some amazing practitioners that probably most people listening have heard of. They're very famous and wrote some amazing books, and I'm sure they're amazing people, and in some ways probably amazing doctors as well. And they come back and they never got to the cause of this person's real problem.
Right.
And it stuns me when I see case after case like that. But it also motivates me. So thanks for having me. Hope they heard the message.
Great. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
All right. Yep.
So the real key here is, we're looking at cellular inflammation. We've heard a lot about the inflammation, chronic inflammation causing chronic disease. And as Dr. Pompa was so great in pointing out, until we get to the cause of the problem, we're not going to get to the cause of the disease. And that's what we're all about here. And, by the way, just so you know, Thursday night in our office on the 19th at 6 o'clock in Santa Cruz, McCollum Family Chiropractic, we will be going over steps you can do to find out exactly whether this is right for you. In Capitola, yes. So now I have a really good friend and colleague of mine here. It's Tammy Stewart. She's been a healthcare practitioner for a number of years. She got into it, like most of us did, to help our families. And she has her special niche, and she's in the little state of Texas. And so, Tammy, I'd love you just to kind of tell, from your viewpoint, what we're doing.
Yes. The thing that brought me here, as Dr. Duncan said, was my family. My children were experiencing depression and chronic fatigue and frequent illness. And my health, I know, has always been my focus because my grandmother had Alzheimer's, which robbed her of about 10 years of her life. It robbed me of her life.
Yeah.
It robbed my kids of ever knowing her. So my passion is to stay forever young.
Nice.
I want to thrive when I'm 80 or 90 or whenever God calls me home. I want to live with vitality. And yet we were experiencing dysfunction in our family. And so once I learned that you have to fix the cell to get well, that's what we do that's unique, that nobody else is doing. And when we started doing that in our family, those symptoms started going away because the body is designed to heal itself when you remove the interference.
Yeah, absolutely. So now you have a special niche that you work with, or niche that you work with in your practice?
We focus on cellular healing. and staying forever young, because that's just where my heart is.
Yeah.
And we work with people who have, really, if you think about it, which organ is made up of cells?
Yeah, all of them.
Every single one of them.
Yeah.
And most people in our country today have thyroid problems.
Yeah.
And the thyroid is made up of cells. And when you heal the cells in the body, all of those organs are going to benefit, and you're going to experience health in your golden years instead of dysfunction.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you know, one thing that I know, and I'm sure you hear this too, is so many times people come in and they think they've tried everything. They've gone through every gamut of you know, medicine and or even the supplement or natural health care, but they're not getting to the root cause. So what's different again from what we do?
And it breaks my heart for those people, because by the time they get to us, they're so skeptical, aren't they?
Yeah.
And hopefully they have a little bit of hope left.
Yeah.
And what we do that's different is remove the cause of the problem, which is the toxins in the cell are causing inflammation in the organs.
Exactly.
So when you detox the cell and heal the cells, specifically detox the cells in the brain, then your body can start to function again. And that's completely different. So many people come to us have been doing good things. They've been doing chiropractic and acupuncture and diet, and those are good things. You have to do those good things.
Yeah.
This is that missing piece of the puzzle to detox the cell.
Yeah.
To fix the cell to get well.
Well, that is so awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you stopping by. And Forever Young, you live it. You know?
Oh, thank you.
I mean, you are just such an amazing being. You're just glowing all the time. And I'm so happy to have you as one of my friends and associates.
Thank you for having me here today. I'm happy to share.
All right, thanks. All right, we have another incredible doctor up here with his own story, Dr. Randy.
Dr. Randy Michaud.
And Dr. Michaud is, when I first met you, I was really impressed, because I think you had come off of, and I'll probably get this wrong, but you're a marathon runner.
I'm an endurance runner, Spartan race.
A Spartan race endurance runner, that's even more, right?
Yeah.
And you had just completed a run off some incredible amount of fasting days, right?
Yes.
How many days had you fasted when you did that run?
So I had done, So I had done really 3 days that week of dinner to dinner fast. So I was restricting calories pretty significantly. Some by way of purpose, some by way of that's just how the day went. And then went into a 14.5-mile race with little fuel.
Wow. And how did that go?
It went pretty well. I had a great time. Probably my best time at that course. I had done it twice. At that mileage of 14.5, it was my best race.
Wow.
Would I do it again? No. But for the experience, it taught me a lot about how the body really can use fat for fuel on a long endurance with very also strenuous glycolytic type needs.
Yeah, so you're basically talking about having your body into ketosis, which is what we know the body heals much better in ketosis. The brain loves burning ketones, which are fat, by the way.
Right.
And once with cancer cells apparently can't live off of ketones. So now, where do you practice and what is your niche?
So I am in Northern Virginia, in Leesburg, and I've really focused on autoimmune conditions, mainly women that are trying to exercise, that are trying to diet, do everything they can possibly, really to lose weight, but they're struggling immensely. They're not getting any results. They're frustrated, they're tired, they're exhausted.
Wow.
And it's not the diet and the exercise. They're missing toxicity. They're missing getting back to the cell to help heal.
So we're talking about getting the cell to get well again, and it's just like a theme amongst all of us here to really understand how to do that. And for instance, so a lot of people, we know that they might start a diet or they might do something, and they do well at first, but then they plateau and they give up.
Absolutely.
So what's missing?
What's missing is that they're not getting to the heart of, they're not getting the toxins.
Yeah.
Their diet's not touching toxicity. And the cells just are not. They're all, the diets are somewhat helpful, but they're not restoring energy to the cell. We just had a great talk on oxygen in the cell. They're not getting that back because the cell wall, the cell membrane, the skin of the cell is so damaged. It's like rust all over it.
Yeah.
And so all the nutrients they're eating, it's not doing anything. They're not absorbing in their gut because those cells are depleted, they're damaged, they're injured, they're not healing. And what I always say to them when they come in is your body has the innate potential to heal. It never loses that, but your disease process is now outpacing that ability. And that kind of makes sense to them. They're like, oh, wow, that makes sense.
So you're talking, and thanks for bringing this up, because we're really talking about fixing the cell, and the cell wall is basically the life part of the organism that is allowing nutrients in and out. It's where things like diabetes go wrong, where hormones can't get in the cell, and a lot of the oils that we're eating are not friendly to us, and also the toxins and things like heavy metals, molds, and then of course glyphosate are breaking down and basically the word oxidizing these cell walls. Right, they're breaking them down. Absolutely. So they can no longer function.
And one of the other things is that the cells, when they're not working well, they can't get the toxins out. Right, they're trapped in the cell, doing damage to your energy centers, doing damage to your DNA, and they're trapped because your detox pathways are closed because that cell wall, that membrane, is not functioning right.
Yeah,
and can't function right unless you go upstream far enough to heal that. And diet and exercise does not do that.
Wow. So I think the people out in the audience, we've had this radio show for a while, they're starting to get used to what we're saying, but they're still not, people aren't hearing this. They're not hearing what we're talking about out there. I think that we've got to get the word out that, if you've tried everything and you're still not getting well, there's something missing. And we have found that via Dr. Pompa's teaching and all the amazing scientists he brings in here.
Absolutely.
We got to fix the cell to get well.
Yes, we do.
All right, man. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by. Really
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
You bet, man. Awesome. Thanks. All right, you guys. So I've got another great doctor coming up here in a minute. And again, this is Stepping In Radio, Dr. Duncan McCollum and Carol Montgomery. And we are live at Boca Raton World Symposium on Cellular Healing. And we had Dr. Pompa start the show off for us, amazing guy, bringing science together so that we can actually change the health of the people in our communities and the world. Because we have doctors from all over the planet here today. And I have actually a really good friend of mine, Dr. Jeffrey Knight, who has a really great specialty niche that I think is going to go to the heart of everybody. And that is, I'll let him tell you about it, but Jeffrey practices in Utah. And so tell us what you do, Jeffrey, what you're really interested in, and then what you're finding based on what we're doing here, we can do to change people's lives.
Right. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on here today, Duncan. Pleasure to be with you. And the focus and the passion that I have is supporting families that have autistic children, special needs kids. Why is because I personally have a connection there. I have two stepsisters that have children that are autistic.
Wow.
One that is severely autistic, and the other that you would consider more high functioning. Nonetheless, you can definitely see how much of a burden and challenge it can be for mom and dad and for the whole family. Of course, the child themselves have so much stress going on in their lives as well. And so seeing this condition and this challenge that these families are having really brings me to the question of, okay, well, what's being done and what can we do to help them? And from my perspective, most of the things that are provided is more kind of coping strategies.
Yeah.
And I totally respect and appreciate those things, but I'm kind of one of those guys that's saying there's got to be something more. And that's the biggest thing that really attracted me to Dr. Pompa was when I started to hear that you can actually detox the brain, which is in a sense a big cell membrane, and you can do it effectively and safely, because ultimately autism is neurological dysfunction and creating some different challenges and stresses throughout the body. And there's definitely some strong connections to gut and to brain connection as well. But as I've embarked on this, what we're seeing is, yes, there is answers, there are options, and there's ways to actually help some of these autistic kids not just have to cope and live with it, but to help them get better and find more peace of mind, more freedom, more hope and confidence for those families as well. And it ultimately is stemming back to fixing the cell to get well. I know that's the theme here, but you know, definitely tying into the brain as well, so which is a huge part.
Yeah, and I think what we know is a lot of times families with these kind of challenges have such a hard time. You know, the parents just are under so much stress. The types of foods that these kids eat, you know, they're constantly, and a lot of times, just continually eating foods that are toxic to the brain, toxic to the body. They're eating sugars and, you know, glutens and things that, you know, maybe a healthy person can tolerate, but these young brains that are having such a hard time learning how to use the, you know, all of the function of the brain are just being over polluted again by the soft drinks and all of these feel-good foods people are eating that are actually destroying our own healthy digestive system and just perpetuating further problems rather than actually starting to clean the brain and the body so it can function well.
Exactly. No, and it's so true. And I know you probably mentioned glyphosate, right?
Yeah.
Which, as I'm sure your guests know, that creates that leaky gut that we hear about, which then drives those toxins even deeper.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing that's really interesting too is, you know, unfortunately, a lot of these kids are coming into this world already predisposed to toxins.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
There's that study that shows even the cord blood, right, with a certain level of toxins that are found there.
Like 278 or something ridiculous.
Right. So, and the question is, well, how's this happening? And the generational component, right? So even a mother that's been exposed to lead or mercury through silver fillings from dental work or potentially vaccines is a big concern, right? With the fillers that they use there. Maybe they were raised in a home where there was lead paint or lead pipes. Well, guess what? You know, those toxins actually get passed from mom to baby. So then you increase some insult into that child, such as maybe a high dose antibiotic for a long period of time, or vaccines on such a really intense schedule that just is overloading that system, then again, you're just creating this cascade of issues. And for, like some of those people that do fine with the sugar or the wheat, well, unfortunately, there are some of those that don't, and they are predisposed. And and the way I look at it is, I think a good way to look at it is, honestly, I think any parent that can walk away from their child being vaccinated should say, wow, we're lucky that nothing worse happened. I have a sister who died in a car accident she was in the car with 3 people. Well, she was one of 3. Her and her best friend died. One of her friends walked away from the accident. Sometimes you ask, how did that happen that she was able to survive that accident where my sister was one that died?
Yeah.
And it's like the same thing I ask with like a vaccine is, any parent should say, thank heavens my child's okay, when you look at the insult that is going into that body, the high levels of aluminum, the high levels of mercury, the formaldehyde, the other components. And so I bring this up only because I've got several families that I work with, and the parents will say it was once they got these vaccines, then we saw a huge shift, such as seizures or other things like that. And I know it's not the root of all autism cases, but it's definitely a big controversy for sure.
Wow, and so what you're saying is a lot of times, you know, you take 5 kids, maybe 2 of the kids have so much toxins from their mother that came down through the umbilical blood. The mother might have been exposed, and actually we know that it's at least 4 generations that these things are being passed down. So these little kids might become so much more exposed or predisposed to problems from the vaccines than a kid that maybe, number one, doesn't have such a toxic overload passed down.
Right.
And maybe doesn't have the genetic markers that are going to turn these things on.
Exactly.
So it's kind of Russian roulette.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the more we can do to find some good solutions, and we've talked about some of those today at this conference.
Yeah.
The homeoprophylaxis, which I'm excited to learn more about that.
Yeah.
But really, the good news too for any families out there that are listening that have kids with autism there's still ways we can detox those kids, ways we can help increase the good nourishment in their body. That's going to help just the cell process of eliminating these toxins, binding those toxins, getting them out of the body. And like I said before, even getting to the brain and detoxing the brain, which I had never heard or know of anyone else that does it the way that we do it with Dr. Pompa's protocols. And so that gave me that confidence to say, hey, this is one more piece of the puzzle that's going to help these families.
Yeah, I like to use the analogy, if I'm driving down the road in my car and I have a hose in my exhaust pipe coming in and sticking in the cab,
right,
and I'm breathing exhaust while I'm going down the road, I might get to my destination, but I might not be very healthy.
Sure.
So the vehicle that these kids that you're working with, the cleaner it's burning fuel, the cleaner we can keep the environment inside the body, the more chance these kids have to develop into, have a fulfilling life.
Exactly.
The more they're toxic, the more the toxic overload, the greater their chances to have, to become more dependent in our society than not.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I've seen the protocol that you use. Thanks for sending it over, you and Dr.
Sure.
Pompa, and I'm sure some other forces have worked with it. It looks awesome.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you stopping by, man. It's a pleasure knowing you, and I really appreciate what you're doing out there.
It's a blessing to be able to be here with you, and grateful to even know you, Duncan.
All right,
Keep up the good work in California.
Thanks. All right, take care. So again, this is Dr. Duncan McCollum. We're on Steppin' In Radio. And Carol Montgomery, my co-host, is here. I kept her somewhat silent today.
Oh, I know. I've had a break today. Thanks, Duncan.
Because of all these incredible doctors that have been coming in.
Exciting.
And just so you know, we are in Boca Raton at the World Symposium on Cellular Healing, put on by Dr. Pompa and Health Centers of the Future. And, we just got such an amazing group of scientists talking to us from MIT and all over the world.
Yeah, I want to quickly mention, because I think we'll probably have another guest pop in here, so, yeah. Without getting any detail about the presentation that we just came from before we got here, we heard a talk about fish oils. But I wanted to only mention the takeaway from that to everybody who's listening, and that is what we saw today, what was presented to us was a presentation by an MIT researcher, scientific researcher, pure scientist, who basically gave us all the data and all the facts and trial data, including studies that have just come out this year in 2018. But basically coming to all the same conclusion, and the takeaway from that presentation is something that's really important, so important that I want to actually mention it to all of you today, and that is if you do only one thing, and only one thing with your diet right now, we always obviously recommend 100% organic, but if you do only one change, please, please, please change the oils that you're using to cook with, any supplements that you're giving yourself, change all of that. Stop taking the fish oils until we get you the more information, and you'll understand why we're recommending that at this point. But the key factor is here, I'm saying this more about the cooking oils than the supplements at the moment, but that is make sure that you're using organic, 100% pure organic oils. Not cold pressed, but 100% pure organic oils. Your virgin olive oils.
It's okay, Carol. Hello, well, we're back, and Todd's going to speak with us, but we are doing a great job here with these doctors from all over the country. And we have this amazing doctor, Dr. Susie Rivard, and she is an amazing doctor who's going to tell her story about why she got into this business, why you are attracted to Dr. Pompa, what it means to be a true cellular healer, and your own story, which is an amazing story.
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Dr. Susan Rivard. And I am a brain clarity expert, and I came about that expertise because if something is wrong with somebody, it's going to be wrong with me. We heavy metal, mercury, lead toxicity. We lived in a house that had 3 types of black mold.
Wow.
And we're just trashed by the black mold. And then lots of stress. When my mom was diagnosed with cancer and died, she was my best friend and big support. And then at the same time, I had about my 5th or 6th head injury, bad head injury, and then in an auto, and then another head injury where, who would even believe this, a vacuum fell on my head, and I had to get staples in my head, and it trashed my neck and my brain. So I actually had something called cerebellar ataxia where I couldn't walk, really, really fallen down hard. But, and I do want to mention that one of the side effects of that inflammation and brain damage is often anxiety and depression, and learning that you have to function and learn a new person to be, because it's hard to get back to the old person. And what I have found in my almost 30 years of treating patients now is that when you have a disruption in your head or something wrong with that, you actually have to deal with the inflammation of the neuron cell membrane.
Wow.
And neurons, Dr. Duncan, are actually different in your brain than they are in the body because we don't have mechanisms, chemical mechanisms, like we do in the rest of the body to downregulate inflammation. So it's a lot trickier and a lot more important to learn.
In the brain.
In the brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, when people come into me, especially these kids, these high school kids and young kids that are getting whacked in the head with volleyballs or, whacked in the head with a baseball or something, or, take a hit in soccer or collision. In football, for sure. But, you always hear about football. You don't hear about the other sports, volleyball and the other things where the kids are getting the head injuries too, and then they're not getting the correct treatment. So, the stuff that Dr. Pompa talks about down-regulating the inflammation of the cells is crucial.
Yeah.
You got to deal with the metals. You got to detox the bugs. The bugs love sitting right next to the metals.
Right.
You got to deal with the membranes and the right kind of fats. We just had Mr. Peskin, Brian Peskin, come and talk to us about the importance of the right kind of fats and actually omega-6s. And all over in the concussion world and brain injury world, we're all told to take fish oil.
Yeah, now what we found out is this stuff is just not really what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it's perpetuating a problem.
Yes.
Several problems in the body.
Yeah. So, there are things that you have to do when you're head injured that maybe you're not taught to do. And so, on Dr. Susan Rivard on Facebook, we'll be talking about some of those issues. And one of the biggest keys is what Dr. Pompa teaches, what you do in your practice, what I do in my practice, and that's heal the cell membrane to get well. People don't think of nerve cells, but nerves are cells. And they get inflamed, and the mitochondria in them get inflamed just like they do in body cells.
Right, and we know, for instance, I had a brother that had a very terrible car accident when he was 14. And the other people in the car were pretty much broken up, broken jaws, legs, everything. My brother just got a bad bump on his head. And this was in the 60s. And so because of the headaches that he had, they were prescribing aspirin. And of course, aspirin is going to make anything bleed more and more and more. So the concussion that we now know he had that caused the brain bleeding for so many years, he ended up, taking his own life because of the misdiagnosis of what the concussions can do or the brain injuries can do. And, so I only say that because I really want our audience to understand that don't take these injuries lightly. I know, in fact, Carol's ex-husband, Bob Adams, was a professional football player, and he told me one time he got hit so hard, he went back and sat on the bench, and he didn't know where he was, he didn't know what day it was, and the coach came up to him and said, "Bob, are you okay?" And Bob goes, "I don't know where I'm at." He goes, "Okay, we'll go back in the game and send him back in."
Slapped him on the head and told him to go back in, huh?
Yeah, and then so when we have these bleeding things from concussions that, or whatever they are, and then we are putting bad foods in our body, like the glyphosates, the sugars, the glutens, all these things that are going to promote even more inflammation in not only our bodies, but our brains, that's going to damage the cell, the inside of the cell, and it's going to drive these toxins, these bugs, and these heavy metals deeper into the tissue.
Yeah, it's interesting, Doc, because there were a couple things you mentioned, and our vernacular, the words that we use are so, they dial down the importance of a small concussion. So even when you were just talking, you said just head injury, just concussion.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, there is no just or there is no mild when it comes to brain injury. The brain runs everything in the body. And I found this even as a head injured person, that we as a society tend to downplay, and even as parents, we downplay the concussion. And even if you get in an accident, I'm going to tell you guys out there that you say, oh, yeah, I didn't have a headache, I didn't have this, I didn't have that, so I don't think my brain was hurt. But I'm going to tell you that anytime you're in a whiplash car accident, anytime you fall off your mountain bike, anytime your kid does any of that kind of thing, your brain sits in a hard surface of the skull, and it sits just in fluid. So anytime you hit your head, or even you don't even have to hit your head just goes back and forth, and your brain also goes back and forth, and if it's back and forth fast enough, it's going to whack into the skull and whack into the skull, whether it's side to side, front to back, whatever, and you have injured your brain. And you may or may not have symptoms, but another misconception is that you have to have this big one bad hit like your brother and like the football player.
Yeah.
But what they're finding in studies is, especially with the football, it's a bunch of small hits, and they're additive. And if you don't care for them right away in the correct way, they can add up to just as if you'd had one big hard hit and slammed your brain really, really hard.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of misconception about it, and I have so much to say. It's going to be hard to even just not be able to say everything I have to say about head injury. Probably, do I have a minute?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Probably the biggest thing that I want to talk about, because it is something that is not talked about, and I experienced it in my head injury and with people that I've talked to and treated. And it has to do with women, but also women and men, vets, that part of the downfall process of neurons dying and problems happening in the brain, and I think it also has to do with mental toxicity, is this dive into severe depression, a profound depression and anxiety. And the way that I like to describe this is, I believe it's like we all have devil thoughts under the couch. There are thoughts that seem real when you're hearing them in your head.
Yeah.
There are thoughts that if you don't understand what's happening, you can really think that they are your real thoughts.
Yeah.
Like, it would be better for people, my loved ones, if I weren't in the world today.
Wow.
And so I think what happens, there are triggers, like a barometer drop, a change in weather, the food you eat, the fats you decide to eat, the fats you don't eat, how the spine in your neck and the nerve supply and the blood supply and the lymph supply into those nerves function, that regulate what I call the angels. And we should have a whole bunch of angel thoughts, so many, actually, that the devil never comes out from underneath the couch, and you don't hear those thoughts, or even if you hear a little bit of them, you don't pay attention to them because you have so many angel thoughts flying around your brain.
That's just so key, it's because, and we know that we are what we think. And we have to practice waking up in the morning and knowing it's going to be a great day. You know, one thing I wanted to mention about the falls is apparently like 40% of us as babies, before we were 6 months old, fell off the changing table and hit our head.
Right.
So not only the birth trauma, I don't want to call it, it's an experience. It's been called the birth trauma by another profession because they want to make a medical condition out of it.
Right.
But when the kids fall at an early age, right then we're setting them up for this kind of problem. And a lot of times when fathers are, they want their kid to be a pro football player. They keep throwing them back in the game, even though they're injured. And I've seen kids not want to go back in. So it's amazing.
It's hard. I think there needs to be a lot more education about it. Parents don't know about the inflammatory aspect. I think the other thing, and I'm working hard to try to prove about the heavy metal aspect.
Yeah.
I think those heavy metals like mercury and aluminum they're passed through the placenta multi-generationally. So we have them sitting up in the brain, and I think they're sitting in the connective tissue, and then when you get hit like that, it mobilizes from the connective tissue and settles deeper into the brain.
Yeah, that's what we're finding out.
Yeah, what I'm reading is that the growing neurons, they're called neurofibrils, love to attach to the heavy metals, and so the heavy metals will keep those growing neurons from growing and connecting. And they're also like cesspool sites for parasites and virus and biotoxins like mold and Lyme to sit. And I know this is a perfect segue for your next guest that's coming on, but so head injury is important. There is no mild to any kind of head injury.
What's your website
and
again?
It's additive. The best way to connect with me is not really on my website, where I'm in the process of getting that revamped, but it is to connect with me on Facebook at DRSUSANRIVARD on Facebook.
Awesome.
So hope to see you there. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for sharing.
Yeah, you're awesome.
Really appreciate it. All right. Who's next?
It's Todd.
Dr. Todd. Oh my gosh, this guy is so amazing. I'm so glad to have
I did, you did.
talked you into coming up and helping Todd. Todd Watt, you practice in Boise, Idaho.
Yes.
And your specialty seems to have evolved into parasites and a lot more other things and detoxing the body. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey, why you're here, and where we're headed?
So my journey is my own personal journey.
Yeah.
And that is going through Lyme disease, co-infections, parasites, heavy metal toxicity, and Epstein-Barr virus.
Wow.
So overcoming some of these myself has allowed me to be able to move forward and help a lot of other people.
Yeah.
And in the process of learning about clearing out these infections, I came across the parasite deal. And never thought I'd ever know anything about it, but this is where it's taken me to, understanding the role of parasites with clearing out chronic Lyme disease, the role of parasites with connection of activating viruses like mono or Epstein-Barr or herpes.
Wow.
There's multiple connections of having to be able to treat the body, not only the toxins that create an environment where they love, the parasites and infections love to thrive, but being able to remove those toxins, create a better environment for the microbiome, and clear the infections.
Yeah, and you know what's amazing to me is people have come to us that have had Epstein-Barr handled in the past, only to find it's in full bloom again.
Yeah, and that happens a lot. And even people get the herpes sores on their lips, or I had a guy that had it on his lips all the way through his nose, and dramatic for over 10 years.
Wow.
And within 3 months of treating him for parasites, it cleared up, and not only that, it hasn't come back in the past year.
So with parasites in the body, and we've been, we understand that they love to hang around the heavy metals and other types of opportunistic, bugs in our body.
Sure.
What does your programs look like?
My program all starts in the gut. So I go in and I use products that I've formulated that help to bind and clear gut grabbings, bind and clear all the buildup that's been processed in there, whether it's old food or just mucus buildup or what they call biofilm. And these infections really build up and create an environment to where they can thrive, which is the biofilm. We like to clear all that stuff out, start clearing out gut, whether it's parasites, infections, and support the intestinal walls and healing those tissues. Because the quicker we can heal those tissues, the less inflammation the overall body's going to have.
Yeah.
So that's where I always go with, is to begin there, and then out there from the organs and the detox organs like the liver, kidney, clearing the lymphatic, and those areas that will make it most effective.
So we start by getting this big term now, microbiome, that's becoming kind of popular, and people should understand it. That's the bugs that live in our gut. We got to get rid of the bad ones and cultivate the good ones. At the same time, we're repairing the digestive cell walls so we can stop further toxicity, so that as you start to try to handle the organs upstream, the digestive system isn't just going to continue to cause more pollution.
Exactly. And so, when I look at treating and I tell my patients, hey, look, a healthy microbiome is a healthy person.
Yeah.
What disrupts that microbiome are the infections, the toxins such as metals, all the environmental toxins that are in your food, the bad oils and saturated oils that we learned about today on that process. So we need to be sure that we're binding and clearing those things out, providing the right nutrients, the right carbon, hydrogen, and oxygens to those to the tissues to heal them, but also to the right we call sugars or the right polysaccharides or the foods that all these good microbes like, not the bad microbes, right? The good microbes. So that's why diet and fasting are really important in the process.
Yeah, fasting is an amazing subject that we've all embraced, and it's been amazing. I've had incredible results just by doing a 5-day water fast, let alone the intermittent fasting, and we start to starve off these bad bugs, and the body is because our organism wants to survive, it's going to learn to kill off the bad stuff and help bolster up the good cells and the good microbiome so that our body can take its life back. So we're basically helping the body heal by removing interference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So, I appreciate that question of understanding more parasites and the toxicity that they put off is a lot.
Yeah, they just spit out neurotoxins.
Big time. And they're the largest organisms, right? The largest infections as well.
Yeah.
And, creating the right balance in the gut will help keep them at the right level that we need them to be able to coexist. I don't think we ever get rid of all of them. Yeah. But we get them into balance to what's right for our immune system.
Yeah. And so now you're in Boise and you treat people all over the world, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. And what's your website or contact site?
So my website is drtoddwatts.com. drtoddwatts.com.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by, my friend. We'll see you the rest of the weekend.
Thank you, Doc.
All right, and we're here at the World Symposium on Cellular Healing, and I have an amazing doctor coming up now, one of my very good friends. Yay! In fact, if it wasn't for Dr. Mindy Pels, I probably wouldn't be in this program. So Mindy, thank you so much for getting me involved, and you're like one of the stars of this whole thing.
Thank you.
Your practice is in San Jose,
Yep.
right over the hill from me.
Yep.
And you have a certain niche that you found and developed over time. Just tell us about what you do and what this, how this thing with Dr. Pompa, the cellular healing thing, has changed your practice in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think my real passion is the family unit as a whole and how cellular healing plays out for the family. And I'm sure Dr. Pompa talked about this. What most people aren't aware of is that our kids are coming into this world with a toxic load that they inherited from us and from our grandparents and from our great-grandparents. And then these kids are now being raised in the most toxic time in human history. Wow. So the way that we approach our health now is not in the way that we were brought up to take care of our health. It doesn't work anymore. We need a totally different game plan because the toxic load is so big. Right. So I see everything from women in their 40s and 50s that have multiple problems: thyroid, anxiety, depression, weight loss resistance, chronic fatigue, to kids. My passion right now are teenagers. Yeah. The teens that are going through so much pressure in school and the anxiety that they're getting, to the little kids that are asthma, chronic infections. All of that is a toxic issue. And it's all, when you look at the family as a whole, it can be the same toxin that got passed down from mom to child. Yeah, same toxin, and then, like you're saying, the multi-generational toxins coming through. Yeah. And, the amount of disease in our children, the incidence of asthma and, digestive problems, all these immune suppressed children, we know that there's one cause that we have come across. And so how do you address that? Yeah, so we do, just like you, tons of detoxing in our office. So, but every age is a different detox. So here's one strategy I think works really well. I think the mom should be tested for heavy metals first. Yeah. This is how we do it in our office. Like, start with the mom, and then we can actually now go down and say, if mom has high lead, we can pretty much guess that all the kids are going to have some form of lead. Yeah. And it really is a wonderful way to start there. And then detoxing, as you know, is different at every stage.
Yeah,
so,
it's amazing.
Yeah, mom's detox will look different than a teen detox and different than a child detox.
You know, Mindy, I'm so sorry we're running out of time.
Got it?
But we're going to have you on our show. We're going to do a show with Mindy, and she's
Awesome.
going to talk about female hormones.
Yep.
We're looking forward to that. So all of you out there, this is Dr. Duncan McCollum with Stepping In Radio, and we are doing a workshop this Thursday night, the 19th, at my office in Capitola, McCollum Family Chiropractic, 459-9990. Please call and reserve a spot at 6 o'clock, and we look forward to seeing you. And we'll be on the air next Saturday as well, talking about concussions. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you all soon.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Good job.
Sorry we didn't have much time.
Oh yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good.
Good.
The,
Yeah,
the wireless went down for about a minute and a half.
Oh wow.
But then it came back up.
Okay, maybe
It just said it was weak signal.
Yeah, just
It's
put a
probably
spot
gonna tell.
advertising my,
Should I
the
delete
thing
it?
on
Should I
Thursday
keep
night.
it? I guess I
No,
could
you can
post
watch
it and
and
watch
still
it.
post it.
Okay.
Can you just say right now, just say,
Okay, cool. I got to go back on to my next thing.